2, 1. All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening. This is the second council meeting of the afternoon, 7 o'clock meeting, Wednesday, May 20th. New Shoreham Town Council is meeting via telecommunications pursuant to the State of Rhode Island Executive Order 2025, dated April 15th, 2020. Participants in the meeting tonight will be myself and Second Warden Andre Boudreau, council members Martha Ball, Sven Rusum, and Chris Willey. EMA directors Bill McComb, Pete Gemp, and Chief Vin Carlone will be joining us also as participants, as well as the medical director, the new medical director at the medical center, Dr. Tom Warkup. We welcome everyone. And also interim town manager Jim Kern is with us too. I'm sorry. So first item on the agenda for tonight is a warden's report. I don't have a formal one to report, but I would like to mention that in addition to these meetings, which are being televised, staff of Town Hall, as well as the town manager and several of the counselors have been attending and trying to keep in touch with folks upstate, keep our finger on the pulse of what's happening up there, so to speak. There's conference calls every day with the governors, with municipal leaders, which sometimes town manager listens to or phones in on, sometimes myself, Andre Boudreau. There's also meetings that town manager attends with other municipal leaders specific to town management. I know Amy Land has been involved in some of these meetings also. And yesterday, Andre and Jim Kern and Tom Warkup and myself were able to call in and have an exclusive phone-in conversation with the governor's staff and other leaders in the governor's world, specifically DBR, Department of Business Resource, Department of Business Regulation, Emergency Management Agency, and Rhode Island Department of Health. During those meetings, we have we get information from the different departments as well as the governor's office. But yesterday we were also able to ask questions specific to Block Island. And so it was very helpful to not only get some information specific to our questions, but also to get some, let them know what our concerns were and what we were dealing with out here for those who may not have been aware of the situation. They did listen to us, and the questions they could not answer, they were going to go back and try and find some answers to. But it also gave us a perspective on how they come about some of their activities and some of the regulations that they're putting forth. So that was very interesting, like I said, and we meld that into some of our discussions and some of our activities and going forward. So if anyone does have any specific questions, you can email us, and we'll certainly try to get some answers from the governor's office. And like I said, we have input with EMA, DBR, and the Department of Health, as well as the Department of Environmental Management and others. So the first item on our agenda tonight was going to be a discussion with the rescue and fire departments, but they've asked that we table that until after they had their meeting, I guess, on Monday. So we'll not be taking up item number 1 tonight. We'll take it up at maybe next week's meeting or a later meeting. So the second item on the agenda is a presentation of the COVID-19 testing and response plan. This is coming from the medical center, and to cover us and fill us in on that, I'll ask Dr. Tom Warkup to step up. Tom, are you there?
I'm here, thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
What I submitted to town council and to the medical center's board is a COVID response testing plan that encompassed 3 layers. 1, if an individual is a resident. 1, if you're an employee or an employer, or if you're a day tripper or a tourist. and how we would like the health center to be utilized for the purposes of COVID testing, or if you feel that you are ill or been exposed to COVID. Would you like me to go through the individual details or just give a synopsis? Go through the details?
Sure.
Okay. So if you're a resident or a patient of the health center currently, an appointment will be offered so we can discuss your particular concerns and we can decide best course of action of testing and or treatment. And it's mainly to have a conversation about what is it that we're trying to achieve and make sure we do the best particular test or strategy for the person. If an employee or an employer is concerned about someone in their business, please communicate with us at the health center. We can give you some guidance and potential testing appointments, and then to please activate their own individual COVID action plan. And lastly, if you're a tourist and you feel that you may be ill, we're recommending that consider returning home to confer with your primary healthcare provider or communicate with the Rhode Island Department of Health for guidance, or call us here for an appointment so we can discuss the nature of the illness. All of these would collapse into us helping make a disposition of what's next best in that scenario based on medical situation and testing. I'm proud to report that the many individuals here at the medical center have done a great job. We have in excess of 300 tests. Currently, we have 200 nasal pharyngeal swabs, and we were also able to secure the Abbott rapid testing device that I mentioned earlier. We have over 120 tests on hand, and that will be active tomorrow if we needed it. I think if we get more as we get more comfortable with the Abbott and our communication that we had with the DOH, once we understand the cadence of resupply chain, we might use the Abbott solely as our source of COVID, so we can make proper dispositions right away. For individuals that are residents, and if they turned out to be COVID negative, obviously treatment decisions would be based on clinical assessments in the moment. If you're COVID positive, which under the Abbott, we would know within approximately 15 minutes, we can then make some decisions based on your symptomatic nature or asymptomatic nature, based on your clinical appearance, combined with your personal, medical, and social situation. We would either make some recommendations to quarantine at home for 14 days. We would be notifying the Department of Health for contact tracing and further testing guidance. It's our opinion that that is solely the responsibility of the Department of Health. They have acknowledged that we are certainly partners on the ground, but we would take direction on contact tracing from the Department of Health. They stated that they're 92%. They have achieved 92% of the contact tracings within 24 to 48 hours. So we would certainly rely on their guidance. And then we would obviously ask that individual for contact precautions and isolate from family if they're co-dwelling, if that's possible, and we give them some guidance on that. If they are not clinically well, or they do not have a social situation that is conducive for being able to be quarantined at home, then we would transport to the mainland medical facility for either potential hospitalization or evaluation. The transport would be determined based on EMA and clinical assessment at the time. I received a question, and I think it was a great question, about if law of averages were start to begin to happen in numbers. That's where we'd have to rely on the EMA to help us with arranging transport. There was a question about the law of large numbers. If that law of large numbers took place, then we would be expecting about 8% of the tests to be positive and approximately 8% of those individuals to need hospital level care. So you can take those numbers and keep breaking them down. That would be the most accurate representation of the law of large numbers. So we would be still looking at a very small amount of individuals, but we would have to communicate with either Life Flight and or the ferry. But I think that's going to have to be in a communication with the state if we had a large outbreak. For individuals that are employees or the employers that are concerned, again, if that individual is COVID negative, treatment decisions will be based on the clinical assessment at the time. If they're COVID positive, symptomatic or asymptomatic still applies. How they clinically look, combined with personal, medical, and social situations, we would either ask them to quarantine based on the company's COVID action plan. We would notify the Department of Health for contact tracing, or again, transport to the mainland for potential hospitalization or recover and monitor at home. If you're an individual day traveler or a tourist, if you are negative, again, same treatment strategy applies. If you are COVID positive, We will relay that clinical information to the Rhode Island Department of Health for guidance on some next steps. And then we would transport to the mainland for potential hospitalization and or recover and monitoring at home. And again, we would be communicating with EMA on a clinical assessment process for that. Also attached to the plan for the town council to consider is that if we wanted to enact a larger testing scenario, a schematic of how we would reconfigure the medical center's physical plant in collaboration with Mr. McComb from EMA. So we would have a station for rapid Abbott testing in a way that would help us preserve the personal protective equipment of the facility, as well as give rapid determination of COVID positivity. If anybody is COVID positive within that process, they will be pulled out and the other algorithms would flow, which is we would have a clinical assessment and then reapply the dynamics that we just mentioned. If they're negative, they'll move on along the line, much like a kind of an assembly line process that can allow us to process a larger number of people by protecting our PPE burn rates and make disposition as necessary. I'm happy to take any questions or comments.
Thank you, Tom. That was short and sweet. Looks like you've done some great homework on this. Anyone have any comments or questions for the doctor?
This is
Hey,
Martha.
Ken.
Martha, go ahead.
Only that it's comprehensive and easy, and thank you very much.
Yeah, I agree. The flow chart really makes it easy to understand. Chris, go ahead. Chris Willie.
That was my comment. This is one of the easiest things that I've had to look at, but makes complete sense. I can understand it. My question is, I see this is in draft form, Dr. Workup. When will this be made public or official?
I was just going to take any comments or revision suggestions tonight, and I'll have it out in undrafted form for distribution at your direction.
That's great. As a comment I make with all these things that that move forward, make it available as many places as you can so anybody can find it and look at it. If they have any questions, this should answer them. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think we appreciate the opportunity to comment and review it, Tom, but it's your ball. It's your ball's in your court. So I think you do with it as you see fit, but we certainly appreciate the opportunity to have a look at it at first blush.
Thank you. It'll be posted in the morning then.
Great. Sven Riesum, go ahead.
Also, Dr. Workup, I think really clear, crisp, good. Thank you. As you may know, Jim Kern and I have gotten a number of business groups together. So I'll just take Julie Fuller as an example, who is coordinating with all the hotels. I think if you're okay with it, Jim can send that to all of the leads of real estate agents, hotels, restaurant, bars, et cetera, and get this document sort of blasted out to them. My hope would be that this becomes almost part of their COVID plan. At least then they all know it. And so I think maybe you can work with Mr. Kern and get it out to the people really efficiently and quickly.
Thank you.
I think it's critical. Thank you very much.
I think that was Jim and my thoughts, that once we would put this together as a package and ask them to incorporate that into their planning. And again, any employer that is interested in understanding what testing capacity we'd have, please communicate with us here at the medical center and we can walk you through the process.
Great. Okay. Any other questions? Jim Kern, go ahead.
I just wanted to kind of expand a little bit on what Sven was saying. The doctor and Bill McComb and Chief Carlone and I have conferred on the memo, conferred on a kind of an approach that I summarized in the memo I sent to the council yesterday or this morning. I think it was this morning, regarding reopening plan for businesses. And he refers to the COVID-19 response plan in his spreadsheet. I can summarize that if the council is interested for the purpose, for the benefit of those listening at home, or we can do it at another time. But the idea is that we would work in conjunction with Dr. Warkup to assist businesses in understanding what the capabilities of the medical center are, and in turn, the medical center being able to help the businesses identify best practices in addition to the state regulations. So I can run through that quickly, or we can do it.
Yeah, I was thinking of having your coordination with businesses in the medical center as part of the next item, but you can certainly meld into it. So if you want to cover it now as an intro, as a segue, go ahead.
All right. As for the time that,
Hold on, Jim. Andre, did you have something? Andre, you're muted. Andre.
Yes, thank you. I just want to thank Dr. Warkup about this. I was, I was up at the medical center yesterday having my head examined, and I was, I felt as though that, when we have new staff come in, sometimes you can expect beats to be skipped. And, I am absolutely confident that Dr. Warkup has, within the week he's been here, he produced this document. I'm very confident and happy that, we haven't skipped a beat, and in a time of great need for everybody. And I really want to thank Dr. Warkup for that, and the medical center staff and whatnot, and the people who hired him. I think this was a great way to start. I know that when this goes public, there's going to be many, many questions from the public about it. I would just ask them to be mindful that he is the CEO of the medical center. He's also the doctor, and he's also, with us managing a plague. So he will get you your answers, and they'll be timely, as I think. But I really appreciate this document. I think this is the document that the townsfolk and everybody have been waiting for quite some time, and I'm proud to present this tonight.
Thank you, Andre. Jim, go ahead.
make sure I'm unmuted here. So as I said, in conjunction with the doctor coming on board and designing and sharing the planning, the testing protocol, working with the EMA director with respect to provisioning and ultimately some transportation details, put together a memo that I intend to share with the individual businesses preparing to open. And it's three parts, and there's one additional part I wanted to mention, but consistent with the requirements of the state of Rhode Island, any business opening is required to put together a written plan that needs to be available upon request. It doesn't need to be approved by any governmental entity, the state, the town, but it needs to be created, and more importantly, it needs to have the elements in it that will help dictate both preventative measures that the business is undertaking and response measures in the case of a positive test. So written plan for any business that's opening. Obviously, these are going to vary in complexity based on the size and the scope of the business, from a gift shop up to an inn with a restaurant. There is significant guidance and really framework provided on the Rhode Island Reopens website, such that individual business owners can go in and use that as a template. Also, as Sven has facilitated and contributed to and listened from, there is a kind of a group of restaurant people, restaurant owners, inn owners, I think, sharing best practices and in a position to share ideas as we go through this, things that are working, things that need to work better. So that written plan for reopening should include description of process for picking up takeout orders, payments and handling money, screening for employees, visitors, and customers. Obvious things like the use of face masks, spacing, hand sanitizers, and also the plan, for example, in restaurants, the guidance from the state requires designation of an employee to implement and monitor compliance. So that's mostly state driven in terms of what you have to comply with. But I think, as we've said earlier, people who are in business know how to run businesses better than state officials and municipal officials, frankly. So I think as the different phases of reopening are allowed, the best designs will be created by the people who operate these businesses. Second, which is where the doctor's plans come into place, coordination with the medical center for preventive and response measures. As we've worked together, the health center staff are and will be available to advise individual businesses best practice. I really think it's important that businesses understand what the testing protocols are going to be, or what the test response is going to be, and this may change. The state of Rhode Island is testing 3,000 a day. The governor has designs on that being at 10,000 a day by July and 20,000 a day by August. Seems like a long way away, but significant increase in capability if their plans come true. So staying in touch with the medical center and understanding what is available, I think is in everybody's interest, and it's part of what we'd be asking for. Let's see. Part three, somewhat unique to the island, is our housing. It's one of the things we spoke with the state representatives yesterday in the meeting that Ken referenced. I don't know that there really isn't housing guidance at the state level. Our housing scenario is a little bit different than, as I said on the call, somebody living in Warwick going back to an apartment, or even if they're staying in a hotel or motel, it's different than out here. So looking for the people that are involved in that, businesses that have housing, to coordinate with the doctor and with us to the extent that that's appropriate, so that they have a plan regarding quarantine, including provision of food for arriving employees, the housing arrangement that's actually being planned, and any isolation transportation plan in the case of a positive test that the doctor spoke to in his presentation. I think this is the place that maybe we differ from other communities more than any other. And I do think close coordination with the medical center will increase the probability of good outcomes and just good process going into opening and housing people. Lastly, I wanted to mention that we're looking at a couple of things. There's been some documents circulating around from other communities looking to develop, using some of those, a simplified application to alter liquor license service areas to help businesses if it's appropriate. That doesn't mean that the liquor licensing board, which is the town council, would agree to the proposal or to the application. We want to put something together so that if you have land adjacent that you've arranged to use through an agreement with another owner or the same owner, the liquor licensing board can consider that. And then we're also considering the possibility of some dedicated space at the point where the crowded streets are choked off, a couple of dedicated spaces for takeout to try to help restaurants provide that service, and as a number of them have, and be able to do that business through the summer. As Sven mentioned, there's an effort to identify kind of scale of employees that are anticipated to arrive over the next month. That information is still coming in and is somewhat incomplete, but we expect it to be filled in within the next couple of days, and we'll share that obviously with the medical center and with the council and with other stakeholders, so that the medical center will know kind of we'll have some idea what has been referred to as the denominator, what the size of the influx would be, and we can fit it into these two plans. And I'll stop there.
Thank you, Jim. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Sven Reason, go ahead.
Maybe for Ken, you and Jim and everybody, just in your conversations and as Jim wrapped up that plan, one of the questions from the retail group, actually two questions from the retail group, really revolved around the 300 square feet per person within a store. And given our store size on Block Island, is there a way to get that down to, with the governor, of course, down to like 250? And I don't know if you guys talked about that with the state. And then secondly, I assume we'll talk about bathrooms later, but that would be the other thing that a number of people have mentioned from these groups.
Yeah, Sven, I did bring that up with the Liz Tanner of the DBR, Department of Business Regulation, yesterday, and mentioned to her that it was somewhat constraining for a lot of our stores on the island. And so asked them if they could review that and maybe possibly allow some exceptions and under certain situations. So we hope to hear back from her on that. So
Thank
you. Yep.
Okay.
Andre, go ahead.
Yes, Sven, to answer that, in the same vein, some of the restaurants, I was in on the restaurant group, and there was the issue of 5 guests at a table when generally couples will go to dinner. And that leaves an odd man out sitting in the car. It could be, why couldn't it be 4 or 6? And like I said, I brought it up. It's input. They'll get back, I guess.
Right.
Jim Kern.
A couple other things on the bathrooms. In addition to the other calls that we've all been participating in, Dave Sniffin's been participating, and I have a couple on DEM calls, beach openings. It's a big deal. A number of communities, including this one, there's state guidelines, but we're also trying to coordinate so one town doesn't open their town beach and so on, as people can follow, I'm sure. And I haven't gotten to look at him yet today, but he did say the guidance with respect to beaches and beach opening. I'll repeat something I think I've said at a previous meeting. The state of Rhode Island is intending to open 2 beaches this weekend, but partial parking lots, and they're not opening the pavilion, and they're not opening bathrooms. So we've had a number of conversations about bathrooms, our options relative to that. I think we would all prefer to use real bathrooms instead of portable bathrooms. Working on how quickly you would have to clean them, or what the periodicity would be, and whether we could reasonably control egress and ingress. And I think we probably can. So I anticipate being able to use that, and I think we can also use some of the staff to possibly help out down in Old Harbor. We'll see how that goes, but need to look at the state guidelines with respect to cleaning, and we are still proceeding with an optimistic view of being able to use bathrooms at the beach. Haven't completed concessions and those things, but that's in progress.
Jim, just along those lines, that it was mentioned that one of the municipal leaders calls that the opening of the state parks and the beaches is going to be a phased approach. Actually, state parks are going to be pretty far in the future, but they also did mention specifically that playgrounds were still a concern, and that they should be kept closed until we can sanitize touch surfaces on equipment in between users, which they don't see any practical way to do that at the moment. So we're wondering about the playground equipment over at the Ball O'Brien Park. That needs to be kept closed for a longer period of time. Andre, did you have something?
Yeah, no, I hate to do this. I want to back up Jim's plan, and Dr. Walkoff, maybe either one of you could answer this. And I mean, we did hear the answer on the call the other day with the state folks, and but you know, all of us have gotten a lot of emails about you know, mass testing of employees coming over from different places and whatnot. And I mean, I do know the answer, but could the doctor or Jim, you know, just kind of relay what the thinking on the state is on that right now?
I'll let the doctor go first.
He's muted.
Go ahead, Tom.
So when we had our call with the DOH, that came up as an opportunity to talk about mass testing. And I think they have some ideas of how they were going to do it. They mentioned about the URI mass testing facility was closed down due to kind of low volume and numbers, but that would be something that they could spin up again or reallocate the personnel that were at URI to maybe a more practical location for us. They didn't mention ferry services specifically, but I assume that's what they were intimating. But I think we would use the DOH to leverage on a mass scale because they're the only entity that has the size and scale that can do such a thing. I think what our job would be from the medical center is that as we start to see, if we start to see a larger influx of COVID positivity, obviously we would be in close contact with them and then likely immediately begin to pivot and ask about preventative type of screenings prior to people coming to the island from various locations. And then from the employer side, the testing of an employee has a role in overall, I think, allaying fears, but does not preclude them from the proper social distancing, hand hygiene, mask wearing, etc. So that's why when we have these communications with a company, if they so choose, or an individual, we wanted to sit down and make sure that everyone understands what it means and what it does not mean.
Right. And so what I got out of that meeting, out of that question with that meeting also was that the state isn't mass testing people who are not positive. And it seemed to be like, you know, the 2-week quarantine was the end all, or not the end all, but like the safeguard. A test would be okay. It'd be a snapshot in time, but the 2-week quarantine is really a better way of keeping people, you know, out of the community before it's known they're healthy, so to speak, you know, with not getting into the whole asymptomatic thing. But I just wanted to address that at this meeting because there have been a lot of emails about mass testing of, you know, maybe employees come out. And it's just that the state's not doing it. And I think they're favoring the quarantine instead and putting it on the employers to do that. So if anybody else has a different take on that, I think that would be what I got from that.
Hey, can we get a I've got a question
Go ahead, Martha.
about a clarification. That's what I'm looking for. A clarification on the status of the quarantine, if it is expected to expire, if it's going to be lifted, if it's going to be continued. Does anybody know on the out of state where we are with that, or where we think we are?
Ken?
Go ahead, Jim.
So I'm on a number of calls, as I've said. There are a number of people who are frankly pushing to release it. But the official answer is that and we asked this on the direct call with the staff yesterday. There isn't there, and we ask it essentially every day. There isn't a date. Whether you're looking to drop it or you're looking to extend it, people want to know. And there isn't a date that's been developed and the governor's willing to share. Not unlike the opening for outside restaurant service, there's a number of rumors going around, everything from sometime this week to the second week in June. The one thing we did get categorically was that in the conversation we had with the governor's staff and other directors yesterday, was that international travel would stay under a 14-day quarantine for the entirety of the foreseeable future, which is to say all 3 phases of reopening, which I think covers at least this summer. So that's without indication in terms of whether they're going to release the 14-day quarantine. They're just not saying. And if I could just add to the previous question, that's the answer you get most. I think Andre depicted it correctly. The answer you get most is, even if you test, you still have to do everything else, because it just establishes that person within the accuracy, the statistical accuracy of that test and asymptomatic, et cetera. It just establishes that they came up negative under that test in that period of time. So they always give that as the answer until the state gets to that volume. I think it would go the way the doctor described it, which is that if it's justified in the eyes of the people allocating resources at the state level, then you would see something down in the south end of the state. But previous to that, I don't think you would.
I see your hands up.
Okay, I'm talking about, I'm talking about something else. I'm talking about the 2-week quarantine from out of state. I'm not talking about summer workers. I'm talking about people who come to rent, people who just, come over here and give a new definition to entitlement. And what is that? Does it appear that it's going to stay in place is my question.
Martha,
That
That's the
was the
question
answer.
I'm getting.
That was the answer I was giving.
Martha, I can tell you that as of last Friday, they were not stopping cars at the border anymore. The National Guard and state police were not stopping cars at the border. They found that there was a very, very low percentage of cars that they were stopping that were actually going to be staying in Rhode Island. There might be some indications coming from upstate that the quarantine order may be expiring soon, or may not be renewed. But I think we won't know until it is or isn't. So I think we're going to have to wait a couple days to find out. I see your hands raised, everyone. I'll try and get you in order. Sven.
I'm sorry. I really don't think people understand this. I think everybody, again, is getting sidetracked, getting completely overtaken by the talk about the summer workers, and we're just ignoring the fact that we still have this 2-week out-of-state quarantine that greatly impacts the rental, and it greatly impacts a bunch of people who are coming over here. And I don't know what roads they're stopping people at in the border. Maybe it's only 95.
Yeah, that's where they were doing it, and they stopped doing that. They're doing it in other roads too, but they stopped doing that. And to clarify, Martha, yes, the quarantine as of today,
I thought
quarantine is still.
Thank you. That's all I wanted to have on record.
Yeah, it's still in place, Martha.
Stan Reeson, go ahead.
I wanted that clarified.
To Andre's comment, we have all received a lot of letters regarding seasonal employees. I think Jim sort of said that, many of these business groups are pulling together data. It looks like there's, roughly 1,500 potential employees coming in by the time you sort of gross up responses. We'll have more details on that, and Dr. Workup is informed of that. But I really want to be careful, and I caution the council and actually all of Block Island. The seasonal employees are one thing, but we are surrounded by hot states, right? New York, Connecticut, Massachusetts. And if we're going to test, we should test everybody. And I do fear that we quickly get into the they, them, we, us discussion, which I find irreprehensible. And I think we really need to make sure that we are focused on getting to those people, like Dr. Workup said, that have symptoms, and then treat systematically. And I like his algorithm approach a lot. But if we're going to test, we have to test sort of everybody, anybody, regardless, because as Martha just inferred, those people coming in for a day trip, or those people coming in for a rental when rentals are allowed are easily more prone to having the virus than potentially summer seasonal employees. So I just think we need to cover every base. Thank you.
Chris Willie?
To add to what Jim mentioned about the out-of-state quarantine, which is still in effect. A lot of the state orders expire on Friday. The governor has a press conference every day. Friday, she will announce, or she's going to have to make a decision on some of these orders. And one of those is the out-of-state quarantine. So that decision will be made on Friday. So to try to hypothesize when that's going to happen is a waste. So why not just wait till Friday? And that's going to be not only the out-of-state quarantine, but a number of the other orders that do expire. And that conference, I believe, is at 1 o'clock. So everybody who is interested in knowing that should tune in.
Andre?
Thanks, Ken. Those municipal leader meetings, you'll know almost on a daily basis. This is to answer Martha. Either Westerly or Burrillville ask that question every single day. Because what's happening, and Jamestown actually asked today for the first time, because what's happening is the ratio of residents who are in their summer homes to the ratio of just people passing through it's getting larger now. If you can follow me on that, in these towns. So their law enforcement is having a really big issue with, just because someone has out-of-state plates, well, the enforcement is very difficult for these towns to find out, like, well, has that person been here 2 weeks? Or is this someone just passing through that shouldn't be? Like, earlier in the season in these coastal towns, yeah, you get an out-of-state plate, you don't see them often. But right now, with, the season coming, it's getting a lot for these coastal towns. That question was asked today. The answer to that today was that, I guess they're really wringing their hands in the governor's office about this. And they're really, they're actively discussing it internally on a daily basis. And they're going to issue, I guess Chris says Friday. I gathered they were going to do something on that this week. And to comment on what Sven said, it's not the us versus them, and with the with this situation, and it for me anyway, it was the congregate living. A lot of these people coming here and not living in tight knit quarters. It was what are we gonna do if there's an outbreak in the congregate living situation, and that is specific to the businesses and the business housing. So, I just want to, I'm not one of those us versus them with just testing employees. It was to alleviate an outbreak and a big outbreak in a congregate living situation. So I just want to clarify.
Could I just, but let me just clarify. I was simply asking a question. I understand. I'm trying to make the point that if this changes, it hasn't changed yet. And I hope everybody on the mainland does understand that people aren't passing through Block Island on their way to another town.
I was just illustrating that we're not the only one having the problem.
But they're not, we're not having a problem between people passing through here to get from New York to the Cape. They don't come through Block Island. It's not analogous.
Chris
They
Willie?
do understand over there, don't they? That we really are an island.
Chris Willie?
I want everybody to keep in mind, particularly that are listening, that the governors in our region, New England, are more or less working together. So this isn't just all of our states have similar problems with, summer rentals and summer homeowners or seasonal homeowners, what have you. So what happens in Mass, what happens in Connecticut, New York, et cetera, affects what's going to happen in Rhode Island. That's just a fact of the matter. And these governors, I think, did a smart thing in working collectively as a region in determining how how to move forward, because we are smack in the middle of two hotspots. We have Boston and we have New York. So, I know patience is in short supply nowadays, but I think realistically, everybody that I've talked to in the community, in the business community, as well as residents, were anticipating something around mid-June as, all right, we can start moving about a little more. Now, that might have happened a little earlier than a lot of people wanted it to, but I think we're not in a horrible spot right now. The out-of-state quarantine is absolutely still in effect. To Martha's point, and we got to make that clear, and move forward from there. So Friday there will be a lot of news and hopefully a lot of things cleared up. Thanks.
Right. Okay. I think we've exercised this one enough. I think I'd like to move on to the real number 3, and that's a discussion and possible amendment to the amended emergency ordinance of the town of New Shoreham dated April 15th, 2020. Within the ordinance, we still have certain restrictions in place. And this is the opportunity for the council, if they wanted to take up those and discuss those at this point, we could do that. Does anyone have anything they want to bring up first? Yeah, go ahead, Sven.
I mean, really, we're 99.9% with the state, except for the one area where off-island businesses need to register. And they've been registering with Jen and, with Jim. And I think it's gone very well per Jen's comments, and everybody's been very supportive. But I'm not sure that we haven't passed that time and whether there's still value in that process. And so I would just as well drop that from our resolution.
Is that a motion?
It could be if everybody's nodding yes.
No one's nodding at the moment. We're just,
Okay, sure. I'll make a motion that we drop the registration for off-island businesses in the resolution through June 1st from the resolution, that we drop it.
Second.
motion on the table by Sven, seconded by Chris. Does anyone have any discussion?
Seconded for discussion, so we can.
I understand. Would you like to start the discussion then?
I that's why I seconded, so we can start it.
All right. Comments? Anyone have any insight, thoughts?
Building official with us today?
I don't see Mark here.
Jim, do you have any thoughts?
Jim, do you have any comments?
Mark's not here.
I would, I haven't had the conversation with Jen and Mark. I have sent an email saying we needed to have that conversation. I would essentially describe it the way Sven has, which is that it's gone well. Neither of them have indicated that it hasn't been useful, but I do agree with Sven that we are probably at the point of very diminishing returns, and I think we can use our staff and our administrative capability in other ways. So that's not a strong request to drop it, but I tend to think the way Sven presented it, which is that it's probably served its purpose, and I think we can move on.
I think one opportunity that presents itself when we have that registration occurring is the opportunity to make sure that those who are coming to the island are fully versed in our concerns, both in terms of the COVID-19 symptoms, and also in our requirements for if the workers are coming from out of state for the moment, then they do need to quarantine wherever they're working. So I guess I would just want to make sure that information was getting out to them as long as it was necessary and pertinent to do so. On the other side, that is to say, when they arrive at the ferry. Bill McComb, are you on?
Yes, I am. Go ahead, Ken.
Bill, is there still some sort of information dissemination occurring on the other side when folks arrive, particularly workers and maybe arriving in vehicles?
Yes, we were handing out a sheet. That one actually, Jim had just given us a new copy. I think we just need to tweak it a little bit. But what we can do is, if he can get another one to me tomorrow, we can continue to give that out at the window when they pick up the tickets.
Okay, great. Chris Willie?
Yep.
I see you, Sven. Go ahead, Chris.
I mean, the other consideration is we can see what happens on Friday with the out-of-state quarantine before we make a decision tonight. Because that's probably going to weigh heavy. I mean, that was kind of the purpose of this portion of it, wasn't it? Because we have an out-of-state quarantine. Well, if that's going to go on for another week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, we don't know. Why don't we wait till Friday before we make a decision on removing that? Because that was the purpose. A lot of our island residents wanted that. They feel more comfortable with at least some type of data being kept. So I don't think it's critical, and the whole point was because of the out-of-state quarantine. So maybe Friday we can reconsider that after we hear what the governor says and bring it up again at the next meeting.
Okay. Andre, thank you, Chris. Andre, I see your hand. Hold on a second. Sven, go ahead.
If Chris is okay, I would actually amend my motion, and that is to drop it if the quarantine is dropped, otherwise to keep it in place. I believe it's currently in place till June 1st. And I would say, I just change my motion to say, let's drop it if the quarantine is dropped, and if the quarantine is not dropped, then maintain it. Because I think to Chris's point, it's exactly right. We shouldn't drop it now and still have the quarantine in place.
Andre?
Mark Tilson?
Hang on, Mark. All right, Mark, go ahead. I'm sorry. All right, I'll make my comment and then we can hear from Mark. This is the first I'm hearing of this, and I don't like surprises at town council meetings. So there was one usefulness of this was knowing where in the town people from hotspots were in the town. And like I said, this is news to me, popping up at a council meeting. I don't generally want to vote for something until I hear from staff, because there could be things, but Mark's just jumped on. So I want to hear Mark's take on that. I mean, we don't have a recommendation from the town manager or anything to vote on here, and I like those. So I'll just let Mark comment on it. But like I said, I also agree with what Chris says and what the governor may do, and it may be a moot point.
Mark Tilson, go ahead.
I just wanted to make a comment that we have very responsible builders on Block Island. Every job site I've been to, our local builders are doing the very best they can do to comply with all of the conditions of the emergency ordinance. The off-island contractors feel the same way. They understand the gravity of the situation. And I just wanted to let the council know that every job site I've been to, everyone is doing the best they can and they're being very responsible. Thank you.
Thank you,
All
Mark,
right,
for
then.
the input.
My comment on that would be then why change anything? I don't know. Martha, do you have an opinion on it?
Hello?
Martha, go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's just muddying the waters. I think there's enough confusion already about what's where, and to have a motion that says, well, maybe we'll drop it, maybe we won't, is just going to really confuse matters. I think if it's working, if people are reminded of it, it's not hurting anything. I don't, if, a handful of people have complained about it. Well, so be it. There's an argument to let people go back to work at all in the beginning. And I'm not in favor of voting on something that just came up like this at the table, especially when it's out of concert with everything else. I don't like to do things piecemeal.
And may I add, Ken, the governor, in our governor's conference the other day, Ken was asked about that exact same thing, and it was explained to her, because she wanted clarification about what we're doing, because that is one thing that's tighter than what she's doing, that they're doing up there. And so the town was asked about this, and Ken explained what we we're doing quite nicely. So there was no pushback as far as I was listening, but I don't know, Ken could elaborate on that if he wants.
No, I think you're right. I think they have the governor's office has been very, not appreciative, but they've certainly been understanding about anything we've tried to do, and they understand that we have to do what we feel is necessary to protect our population. So they were definitely, didn't have any problem with it. Sven Reesum, go ahead.
Based on the feedback, and I think Friday is a big day. We'll see what the governor says. I agree with Martha, the consistency is key. And we don't want to muddy the water, especially now. So let me just withdraw the motion and we can discuss at the next meeting. Which hopefully will be soon, early next week.
I'll withdraw my
See what the
second.
governor does.
Okay, that one hits the dust.
Yeah, and just so I could just just as an end to that, if Jim could talk to staff about that and get their feelings on it and get us a recommendation.
Okay. All right, thank you. Let's see, anyone I want to bring up on any of the other issues or limitations that we still have in place? I think one discussion we might want to have is the taxi motor vehicle for hire licenses. We do have the weekend coming up. While we are discouraging, for the most part, folks coming out to the island, there will be some folks that that will come out for whatever reason. And there is currently not much transportation available at the moment. There is none. So didn't know if we want to have a conversation about the taxi licenses opening up again. I'll throw it out there.
Oh, I thought they were. You didn't open.
Chris, go ahead.
I
Chris,
thought they voluntarily, I don't, let me find the ordinance. I don't believe that's in there.
No, I thought that got changed. I thought you guys changed that had extended the date to put the notice in and did not have to pick them up this year without losing the license. I thought people could go on the road if they wanted
We
to.
extended it. Yes, Martha,
Yes.
you're right.
okay, I'm sorry.
No worries.
And if they decide, also in the license, we said if they decided not to drive for health reasons, they wouldn't lose their license. So not only we extend, but we.
All right, then, point of clarification, and then they are available. If they
I
want.
think. I mean, I didn't vote. I think that's what happened.
Okay,
This
Thank
is
you.
Kathy. That's exactly what happened. That's exactly what happened.
thank you, Catherine Marola, for clarification. I apologize, everyone, I wasn't up to date on this. Anyone have anything else you want to suggest? Andre, go ahead.
I don't know. I thought if we were going to discuss it, I was going to ask Molly if Molly, our town clerk, if what she was hearing feedback from the cab drivers. I know of one that's eager to get out there, but how many roughly do you think you got that might want to ride?
Thanks, Andre. I can't say. I know that Motor Vehicle for Hire Commission is getting anxious to meet, and this might be a good question to toss to them. The state has promulgated some safety guidelines for taxis. Of course, the town's taxis wouldn't be subject to those necessarily, but the Motor Vehicle for Hire Commission might think that they want to adopt them, or the town council could look at those for adoption. They got circulated earlier by Karen Leroy, the clerk for the Motor Vehicle for Hire Commission. I can't give you a number. Most of the people I've talked to are waiting to see how the weekend develops, how the next few weeks develop. Right now, there's nobody to move around.
Right. Okay. Okay.
But Molly, they can work
I think
should
we
they
have-
want to work.
That's correct. They can work. When the licenses got extended, that piece of the ordinance that suspended the taxi licenses was removed.
So really this, maybe I'm not understanding something, so please clarify. This isn't really a town council discussion, right? This is all about their business model and our hope is that some will drive and our hope is that some will stay safe, but we gave them that option. Is that correct?
That's right. I mean, we all hope they all stay safe, one way or another.
Of course.
But you did give them the option to drive. They don't have to renew their licenses until July 1st.
Yep.
All right, thank you, everyone. Anything else anyone wants to bring up
Okay,
at this point?
I did
ahead.
have another question on that about the, can you hear me?
Yeah,
I
Can you hear
can,
me? No, my question was,
Martha, go ahead.
the rules that were put out, wasn't that the Department of Health who put those rules out? Was it business regulation, the Department of Health, or
they were,
on the cab protocol?
may I?
I'm not
They
hearing
came
anyone.
from
Go
the
ahead, Molly.
reopening Rhode Island. Thank you. They were pulled off the reopening Rhode Island website. So I'm not sure if it was DBR or DOH.
Okay, but can we find out then if, because I think aren't there some rules that supersede, doesn't the Department of Health supersede us regardless of what we say?
It was
So can we
DOH.
find out if there was
It was
rules,
DOH.
if those rules supersede anything we would do? Wouldn't DOH take precedence? Can we get a
I'm
legal
going to defer to Kathy.
answer on that
Arula
one?
that question.
Yes, DOH would. All right, and here I am. The DOH would take precedence over that.
Thank you.
So I do have those guidelines in my hand, Martha, and it said beginning on May 11th, car and van transportation operations
No,
and
I've
continued
seen
services
them.
in accordance with. Okay, fine. Anything else anyone wants to bring up in terms of the regulations that are out there?
No, my,
Well, don't we got to? All right, I'll do it.
Andre.
Don't we have to discuss the bicycle, motorized bicycle, motorcycle, tricycle, and motor scooter licenses?
I think you probably should, and in that case, I'd like you to take over the meeting temporarily.
Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome. I'll bring it up. All right.
I'm recusing as well, Andre.
Recusing.
Christopher Willie's recusing. Chickens.
Well-
Okay, so, Kathy Morello, are you here?
Yeah, I'm right
All
here.
right, okay, thank you. So can you explain to us, what category mopeds are under right now?
Under the ordinance as it currently exists, the bicycle, motorized tricycle, and motor scooter licenses and permits are suspended during the effective period of the ordinance. That's the most recent ordinance.
Right. And I think there was some discussion about what kind of, as we were following the state rules, what there was like, what business they fell under. And I think that I think through all from the information we've gotten, they might be under retail. Can you elaborate on that?
Yes, I did check that out. They could be considered retail. That was the closest category that I could find under the current regulations.
And we're allowing retail establishments to open So can you offer some guidance here as to why, why we need to keep this in our ordinance or why not?
It was my understanding that the last time this came up for discussion and the emergency ordinance was redrafted, there was some issues that were going to be addressed regarding the rescue squad, which I guess are no longer there. But that's my understanding as to why the council kept it in effect at the last meeting where they amended the ordinance.
Okay. Does any councilors have any input on this? Any councilors have any input on this?
Yeah, my hand's up.
Go ahead, I know.
I think the one of the questions we had on the last time was about power washing, was about steam power cleaning, sort of protocols for washing and cleaning, and then where does that wastewater go, et cetera, et cetera. Assuming the way the governor has done this, that these business plans that Jim talked about earlier need to be completed for any business to be in operation, so that when and if DOH comes to ask for them, those business plans are there. I think as long as all of the cleaning protocols are within the town and regulations, that I don't know how we can not allow a retail business to operate, given that other retail businesses are. It seems a little off. I know why we were, and now as Memorial Day is coming, I don't know how we can continue this.
Martha? Martha Ball, you have any comments? Where is she? Just conveniently.
I'm muted.
I know.
I thought we held out on things I thought the last time we were simply saying we're going along with the state, and the things that were not covered, or the things for which we had our own statutory authority, and the mopeds being one of them. We were holding out on, or treating differently, I guess I should say, because we did with the course of the taxis as well. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how bikes and cars fall into this, because they're not. We don't have special statutory authority over those, as far as I know.
Kathy, can you comment on what Martha's question?
At the last meeting, the prohibition on rental of vehicles was eliminated. So as the ordinance currently stands, it is only the mopeds and the bikes, things that we have jurisdiction over, motorized bicycles, that are suspended.
Jim Kern, I was going to call on you anyway, but go ahead.
So a couple things. You did remove car rental. I also wanted to point out that in a direct communication from the town to DVR, Liz Tanner identified that they were allowing this activity. This is to the question of where is it retail, is it entertainment? We specifically said, are you allowing it? She said, yes, we are. You should work with your operators to find, a plan people are comfortable with. To Martha's question, we do have a different statute which allows us to treat them differently. I think we're up to the point where we want to answer the question, do we want to treat them differently? And then to that point, and to Sven's, we have business plans from all 5 operators. There was mention of a steam cleaning or pressure washing. I would submit to the council that I will communicate back from the town to the operators that steam cleaning, I have talked to a couple of operators, steam cleaning and pressure washing would only be allowed once a day, or at the beginning of the shift and the end of the shift. It would only be allowed during this extraordinary set of circumstances. Because I understand there's been some issue with this in the past. So it would only be allowed during this, and it would only be at the beginning of the shift and the end of the shift. I think we interpreted it's mentioned in a plan as being after every ride or something like that. We would be looking for them to sanitize a bike or a moped after each ride. And if there is going to be use of steam cleaning, it would be very judiciously used, as I said, once a day, beginning and end of the day. So plans are in place. Rest of the state is allowing it. I think you do have the statutory right to treat them differently. And this would expire June 1st. So you could take it out now, or you could let it expire, and I'll communicate to them what your wishes are with respect to steam cleaning.
Thank you, Jim. Kathy Marolo, can we have, there are certain things we can do with these operators, according to the moped licensing agreement with the town. There's certain things we can regulate. Do you have that in front of you right now?
Yes, I do. I can pull it up. Hold on. I'm going to pull up the statute.
Thank you.
One, establish a fee to be charged for the issuance of or renewal of any license for the rental of motorized bicycles, motor scooters, and motorized tricycles. The holder of the license is authorized to rent or lease and shall not exceed the sum of $40. Two, establish a maximum number of licenses which may be granted for the rental of motorized bicycles, motor scooters, and motorized tricycles. Three, establish hours during which motorized bicycles, motor scooters, and motorized tricycles may be rented. Four, establish a maximum number of motorized bicycles, motor scooters, and/or motorized tricycles which a license holder may rent or lease under the license. Five, provide that no motorized bicycle, motor scooters, or motorized tricycle shall be rented or leased in the town unless the operator has a valid license. Six, require all motorized bicycles, motor scooters, and/or motorized tricycles to pass inspection annually and be issued a certificate by a duly authorized state inspection facility indicating the vehicle has passed inspection, to be conducted in inspection agencies which will be created and governed by rules and regulations promulgated by the Department of Revenue. Those are the six provided by statute.
All right, Sven, just give me a second while I have Kathy on the line here. So does social, I'm going to use the word social distancing, but it's probably not the right word, but rental of, two people on the moped, given people going on, given the social distancing crowds and whatnot, is that affected with rental mopeds? Or because I know a lot of businesses are just like having groups of people together, and I would think coming up with two people on a moped is there an issue with that with the state or anything like that, or is that not?
It's going to depend on what the governor's final order is on Friday, but the social distancing requirements that have been put into place by the governor's executive order certainly apply to the operation of moped businesses.
Okay. Go ahead, Jim.
But it would
No,
exclude-
Sven, let's Sven roll first, Jim. Go ahead, Sven.
Two things. One, I think the governor's at 5 or something like that, so 2 people on a moped should be fine, and you're out in the country. The other thing, though, before all of this happened, and I remember Martha had some really good ideas. We had talked about issuing medallions and the issue thereby, in Kathy's point 3 of her list, the number of mopeds. Did we ever do that, or where is the status, Jim, or anybody, on medallions being issued to the moped operators? Or does anybody know? because we sort of went into COVID right about that moment.
Yeah.
Well, I will leave this to Kathy, but I think for the purposes of our discussion of issuing a license, we already issued these licenses. We've just suspended them. So, Kathy, maybe you could correct me if I'm wrong, but if we institute anything new this year, it wouldn't be in effect until next year, with medallions or whatnot. I mean, I
We
know
already
we
talked about that.
I thought we did it.
did we do it?
We did it, but we did it, but COVID happened, as someone already said. That's, I think, what happened.
All right. So, okay.
It's just really, my question was, so let me get very clear. I think we should continue to work on medallions. Hopefully it is in place this year. I just don't know. But based on retail, based on the fact that it's two people, I thought the rescue squad brought up a really good point last week about numbers, and that's why we tabled this a little bit. I think now we need to solve that in different ways, meaning the rescue squad question. And I don't see why we wouldn't let the moped operators operate.
Well, yeah, and I'm kind of feeling this. I'm kind of feeling the same way about that because, there are retail, and quite frankly, we go through this discussion every year. I think that they're a retail business. We're holding up their license. I think we have to give them their license back. And I think if there are issues that arise, with I think we have the statistics from the 54 accidents last year. There were almost double that on bike accidents. I get that. I get the whole moped argument. It's been going on long before me, long before Sven, long before the town manager. Martha, no, not long before Martha. But I'll make a motion that we have that we remove the suspension on the motorized tricycle, and motor scooter licenses as listed in item 7 under licenses and permits of the emergency ordinance dated April 15th. Is there a second?
Second.
Jim, you wanted to say something?
Whatever I was intending to say, I think you guys have overtaken it at this point. It was the 2 people on a bike. I think I've also talked to the operators on that. They're going to advise against it, except in cases where the people are from the same family. But technically, I think they're inbounds, as Sven pointed out, because the contact is 5. The restriction is no more than 5
okay,
people
great.
together. But they're looking to be careful with that too.
Okay. So, with that, I think it's a known and understood by the council. And that if things with our issues with our EMA, with the volunteers being down, I think that this is an overture to the operators that we may need their assistance this year. If something, the accidents start happening more, and our EMA, our rescue fire can't, really have personnel. I think that's a conversation that we need to approach them with, and I've gotten feedback on that, and I gotten positive feedback from some of those operators that they need to get their licenses. We're keeping one license away from a class of people that already have their licenses, and I think we need to I think unless we have a very compelling reason to do that, which right now we have the anticipation maybe of whatever, but there's nothing there. So Sven,
Call a vote.
all those in favor? Aye. Sven?
Aye.
Martha?
vote against it because I don't like doing things piecemeal. And I also don't think that the restrictions of the legislation apply to an emergency such as this one. I think by that argument, we could never have suspended them in the first place.
Okay. Motion passes. Ken?
Can I just ask a point of clarification? Because
Andre? I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead, Kathy.
This needs to be passed under section 409B of the town charter when you are enacting an ordinance without following the procedure of section A. So that motion needs to be made as well. You know, we've made that motion every time the emergency ordinance has been amended.
So word that for me.
Sure. So a motion would be in order to amend the emergency ordinance in conformance with section 409B of the charter to deal with emergency matters.
Motion would be in order then to amend the emergency ordinance under section 49B of the charter to deal with emergency matters. Do I need to add that about section 7 licenses and permits?
No, but it would be good to have clarification as to, well, you can do it one of two ways. You can let it lapse, in which case you don't need a motion, you don't need an amendment, or you can specify the effective date of the reinstalling of the licenses.
So, all right. So, in
But I
addition-
would point out that a motion under 409B of the charter must be unanimous.
All right, well, I'll make a motion to amend the emergency ordinance under section 409B of the charter to deal with the emergency ordinance and to remove the restriction on the licenses cited in section 7 of the emergency ordinance A. All permits are suspended during the period of this emergency ordinance. Bicycle, motorized tricycle, motor scooter, and licenses. I want to strike that effective Wednesday, May 20th, 2020.
second.
All those in favor?
Sven,
Aye.
yes.
Sven, yes. Martha?
It has to be unanimous?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm voting aye, and I'm making note that I do not agree with this as previously stated, but the majority of the voting members of the council have already spoken to the direct matter at hand, so I'm voting in the affirmative.
Thank you. Thank you, Kathy, for your assistance on that. Ken?
Martha.
Thank you, Martha.
Chris, are you back?
Sure am.
Great, thank you. Okay, anything else we want to take up or need to be taken up in terms of the emergency ordinance? Anyone?
I don't see anything.
Okay. Any questions or comments other than that? Okay, next item then on the agenda is a perfunctory annual thing to receive and act on a letter of Rustic Rides, Inc. Concerning permission to use town roads for rustic trail rides. Hold on.
I have a question about that. As soon as I find it.
Right on.
I'm fine with it. I just want clarification on the roads. It says all town roads. Is that what's been going on every year?
I've got for my motion. I can make it in my motion.
Okay,
Uh,
go ahead.
I'll make a motion to approve the request of Rustic Rides, Inc. to use Old Mill Road, Gracie's Cove Road, Dory's Cove Road, and Champlin Road, formerly known as Coast Guard Road, for the summer months and for use of all other town roads from October through May, and to cooperate with Highway Supervisor Mike Shea to negate and remediate wear and tear on the sides of the roads. And furthermore, to have Rustic Rides follow all CDC, Rhode Island Department of Health, and state and town guidelines pertinent to the safe operations in the wake of COVID-19.
Second.
Seconded by Chris, I believe. Comments or questions?
Yep.
You have a comment, Chris?
I don't have a comment, no.
Okay, I thought you said yep. Okay, any comments or questions? All those in favor, Andre,
Aye.
Chris,
Aye.
Ben?
Aye.
Martha?
Aye.
I vote in the affirmative. Motion carries 5-0. Next item on the agenda is receive and act on a memo from Sea Level Rise Task Force regarding the establishment of a Sea Level Rise Committee. Anyone want to discuss this? I don't have it in my packet. Want to start the discussion?
Sven, do you want to start that discussion while Ken's turning it up? Trying to dig it up?
Yeah, give me 1 second here. Where is this? Here it is. So on March 9th, going back a couple days or two, a note was sent to the town council, basically from a task force that includes Sam Bird, Jen Brady, Steve Land at that point, our harbor master, Allison Ring, town planner, myself, Mike Shea, and Hillary Stewart, land use administrative assistant. Purpose of the Sea Level Rise Committee is to understand the potential local impacts posed by sea level rise, assess the community's vulnerabilities, engage citizens in the topic, and undertake the tasks necessary to assist the town and its partners in implementation of mitigation projects and other identified priority actions that'll make Block Island a more resilient community. Hopefully everybody got that, or you found the documents, but basically it's to have a group that is dedicated towards sea level rise and understanding the community's vulnerabilities and the potential mitigations that they would then bring forward. The group talked about a number of potential members, and I think there's some really key points that I want to bring up. They talked about 9 people, specifically part of the Land Use Administrative Office, facilities, highways, harbors, sewers, and emergency management, BIPCO, and then planning board. And I think those are really very sound, logical positions. The 2 last ones I think are really also very, very important. One is a local NGO. They happen to talk about Kim Gafford for the Nature Conservancy, but it's bringing in sort of the nature side. And then they recommend, the group recommends bringing on 3 members from the public with knowledge in the field. Specifically, Michael Oppenheimer has expressed an interest, and I think we all know his background. But how do we get people that aren't just, dealing with the sewer facilities, worrying about how sea level rise is going to affect sewers, but rather somebody at a much larger or broader or more national global scale. In this note of March 9th, there were a number of tasks that the Sea Level Committee could include. which would be number one, collection of variety of reference resources about hazard mitigation, documents related, and make these resources available. Two is review the review a spreadsheet which is enclosed or attached to that note that has all kinds of research, and then really starting to apply for how this affects Block Island and potential actions, mitigation actions that the island could be taking. So the net of this is the proposal by this sea level task force to establish a committee on the island, 9 people approximately, that really will focus on the impacts of sea level rise to Block Island and how Block Island can best manage for. Is that helpful?
Ken?
Yep. Andre, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Sven, for that. What's the action, receive and act? What's the action you were requesting that the sea level rise committee is asking the council for?
That basically the town council formulates an official committee to address sea level rise. And the group said it could be called the Sea Level Rise Committee.
I'll make a motion to, for the town council to create a sea level rise task force regarding this, you know, and given by the recommendations of the Sea Level Rise Committee memo dated.
Sorry, Andre, it's the Sea Level Rise Task Force is recommending to form a Sea Level Rise Committee.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll make that motion.
I have a question.
Hold on,
Second
Mark.
it first?
We have a second.
I'll second it if I can.
Ben seconds it. Martha, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I cannot find my copy of that. I saw it earlier today. Is there a way of doing this that makes it that's less unwieldy? A 9-person committee is non-functional.
I'll just say what the task force said. The reason it got to 9, Martha, was because they included a number of people from the island. I agree with you. A large committee is tough. If we recommend back saying 5 or 7, they will manage forth and maybe over time come up with recommendations. But I think whatever number we feel is appropriate, they will go with.
Is there a way of restructuring it if you have people you don't want to lose, just so that it doesn't become unwieldy?
Absolutely. In other words, they could bring people in just as speakers or associates. They don't have to be on the committee and voting members. Absolutely. So, for example, sewers
I
could
don't have
just be. Sorry, I was just going to say some people could be on the side. I just got a note from Jen, who's been chairing this committee and really doing a great job leading it. 7 would be a great number and very appropriate. 9 was just.
7 is tough. We have 7 on HDC, and it is really hard.
Well, that's HDC. Sorry.
Well, you've got some off. You've got the same issues. You've got off-island people. At least one. I don't have it in front of me. The only one I caught was Mike, who's off-island.
Sending it
but,
to you, Martha, right now.
I had it earlier. I can't believe it's not in this massive pile of paper.
Ken, may
Andre, go ahead.
Sea level rise is real. Climate change is real. It's all connected. I think having somebody on the council taking or being, I don't know, I did read it. I promise I didn't lose it. I think having a council member on this.
I read it.
with direct input from the council is a bonus for this town. I'm all on board with it. And if Sven, anything new like that is going to have growing pains, if they feel as though, we haven't appointed anybody, they're going to go meet, they're going to create, then they'll come back to the council. If they feel as though this is what they need or whatever they need, then they'll bring that to the council. But I support this. I think it's about time. I thank you, Sven, for taking it on. And that's it.
And I'll gladly be on it if that's, or at least lead this with Jen. Actually, Jen will lead it. I'll help.
Oh, no, you're on it.
I hope you do something besides look at computer modeling. There are some extraordinary photographs of Block Island in storms that might be of some benefit.
Any further discussion? Sven, just to clarify, this is basically an advisory committee, correct?
I'm
You're not
sorry,
getting a
Jim.
budget. You're not getting a budget.
Yeah, well, yes, it would be a formed committee that would, in theory, report to the town council.
Right, okay. Any further discussion? Did you want to amend that number of folks on the committee? Have you done that? Did I miss that?
Yes, amend it to 7 just for now.
Okay, 7-person board. And how will the members be decided?
There will be a recommendation of the town council because I think they have to be appointed by the town council. Is that not correct? As an advisory group?
Well,
Okay, so that'd be an action.
why don't you go back to the group? Why don't you go back to the group
Martha, do you have
and talk about who's willing to be a non? Yeah, I'm trying. Why don't you go back to the group and talk to people, to these various individuals, and see if there are people who are willing to serve in non-voting capacities. I know sometimes that gets touchy with people. I mean, some may be glad not to.
I
think it's important. I think that's important people here. But again, you need, if you want to function, you just can't have that huge group.
Thank you, Martha.
I want somebody that's going to work.
Go ahead, Sven.
I was going to say, a number of people are very happy to be advisory to the committee or, assist the committee. I think if we go with 7 and then come back to you with a list of names, we haven't reached out to the community at large. People like John Grant may be very interested, folks like that. So I think it could be a really good, productive group. I think we should take this vote, and then the committee will come back to the town council and once officially a sea level rise committee has been formed.
Okay, any further comment or questions? I'll move the question. All those in favor, Andre?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Ben?
Aye.
Martha?
Aye.
I vote nay. Motion carries 4-1. Next item on the agenda is receive and act on an offer to serve on the Senior Advisory Committee. We have a letter. Yep, go ahead, Ben. Sure.
Just to make sure I understand, from a learning point of view, you voted nay for what reason?
Just the reason that I think that this item, the actions could be taken by other groups, and I'm not sure we need to form another committee, but it's just a matter of my opinion at this point.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
next item on the agenda is receive and act on an offer to serve in the Senior Advisory Committee. We have a letter of offer to serve from Bob Agricola. Requested to be considered as a candidate for the opening as an alternate in the Senior Advisory Committee. I make a motion to appoint Bob Agricola of Corn Neck Road as an alternate to the Senior Advisory Committee.
Second.
Seconded by Andre. Discussion? All those in favor? Andre?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Ben?
Aye.
Martha?
Aye.
I vote in the affirmative. Motion carries 5-0. Next item on the agenda is correspondence, just to acknowledge receipt of correspondence. We have a communication from Meg Vitaco concerning the farmer's market. Affirmative. Motion carries 5.
Hello?
Yeah, hi.
Hi.
Is this
Oh, we have a
Meg?
guest.
Yep, this is Meg. How are you guys? Thank you
Good.
for having me.
Pleasure.
You're a new voice.
Wow.
Yeah.
Martha, you changed your voice.
You seem to have a lot of voices.
Glad to be here. Thank you for having me. I'm glad you saved the best for last too.
That's how we roll,
So-
Meg.
I asked a few questions to you. Molly was nice enough to come to me and ask what questions I would have as far as the farmer's market goes. And I guess my main question was, when will the West Side Road sidewalk construction be complete? Because that'll have a bearing on our start date as well as the COVID restrictions will, but so will the sidewalk construction going on. I was hoping to start on the final Saturday in June, which is the 27th, 27th. And I just wanted to know if the sidewalk construction would be complete by then.
Jim, I know, Jim, we've had correspondence from Jim Giamia. Did you want to fill her in on that?
The latest I heard from the facilities manager, Sam Bird, was that that the Cardi Corporation wasn't, although they've been given the green light, they weren't going to remobilize until the beginning of June, unless there's been information since then. And so I don't anticipate it being completed by June 27th. As we know, those kinds of construction projects, the last phase of them can be, making sure everything's back where it should have been, but the sidewalk's in. So I don't know to what extent almost completed, but not completely done would allow you to operate on exactly how it lays out. But I guess officially it wouldn't be good. It wouldn't be reasonable to assume they were completely finished and out of there.
Okay. And then as far as construction goes, like, is that road going to be blocked off completely when construction is going on? Would it be feasible to start at all before that construction is complete?
Again, I don't really know the layout and how people come in and how they park. It's been described to me a little bit, but my anticipation of a sidewalk job is that it would be closed off right where they were working. They move down. They do move down the street, close off a certain section, pour it in. After they put the curbing in, et cetera. So it's kind of a rolling closure, but it's not a rolling closure in a matter of minutes or hours. It's a rolling closure over a segment of a day, that kind of thing. So,
Well, Jim, the other concern is that they're using the short section there, that short section of road to the south of Legion Park as a staging area. A lot of the staging that they've done there involves the curbing that's going to go in. I think that goes in very soon after they get started again. So depending on how much of that gets used up and how much more they have to stage in terms of the final product, will determine whether or not that gets open, if that's what you're thinking of, Meg.
Yeah, and I guess also we could look at, assuming we get the go-ahead from you, we could also look at having it at a different location for the first few markets until that is complete. There's been some talk of some other locations as well, which I don't want to discuss yet on a meeting standpoint before I have it solidified with the members. But I could also have the first, let's say, up until July 15th. I'm just putting a date out there that up until the construction is done, we could do the market at a different location.
Yeah, we actually have this on our agenda tonight. Is just receiving the correspondence, so we wouldn't be taking any action tonight. But you obviously things are all controlled by what happens. What happens with the state openings and with everything that's going on and everything that has gone on. So I think if you want any specific actions in terms of your operation, you'd have to come back to us. We'd have to have it as an actionable agenda item.
Okay.
So if you have any specific requests, then get it to us for one of our next meetings with any kind of supporting documentation or any kind of written documentation or questions or whatever, so we can with it if any need formal opinions.
Okay, I can do that.
Andre?
So I couldn't ask. I had some other questions pertaining to vendors that we would allow at the market this year, and if you knew that as far as the state is concerned, farmers markets are considered an essential resource, and therefore they're not subject to the 50-person gathering limit. So I just wanted to, I guess I wanted to get an okay from you guys that was also how we should proceed on the town level, because I know there's been every single, of one of these meetings that I'm listening to, there's a huge disconnect between, do we go with what the state says or what the town says? And I'm very inclined to go with what you guys tell me is correct, because I think we are different as a town. I just want to see where your thoughts are in terms of, do I need to have like a counter at the gate saying how many people can come and go, or as long as there's social distancing and mask wearing, are we okay? Or is this a conversation for another time?
I think it's a conversation. Personally, I think it's a conversation for another time, because there's several different factors involved there. I mean, in the first place, there's going to be limitations in terms of the numbers that are put down by the state. We can't be any less restrictive than the state is.
Oh, absolutely. I know that. Yeah.
If they're saying numbers like 50, then you have to keep that in mind. And I understand that, the discussions about the farmers market and that sort of thing. But Andre, do you have something you want to chime in on? I see your hand.
Yeah, Meg, thank you. You do such a wonderful thing, and we really appreciate it. I know running that and is a big undertaking, including running your own business. So I thank you for that. On the legislative leaders conference today, this did come up, and you might want to reach out to DBR, Liz Tanner at DBR, because, and I'm not sure if this is what you're doing, but this came up today and I saw your item on the agenda. So if a conversation with her, I think you'd have, and Ken, I think Ken has her number. Farmers markets are listed under critical retail from the original back in March when the governor put these ordinances in effect. There's no guidance right now that's specific to farmers markets, like there is retail, restaurants, that kind of thing. But it goes back to critical retail. And so basically what critical retail means is food, farmers markets. So I got the impression today at that meeting that no artists were involved and could be involved in farmers markets. It could only be for serving food. So I want you to, if you could, check on that, because I see in your email.
That was another question that I had. Yeah.
Yeah, I heard that today, but I'd like you to double check on that. They said that she went into she had 2 violations so far from the state, where there was probably about 15 people selling produce and whatnot, and like 10 others selling art, and I don't know in art. And they had to tell the people selling art that they were not part of critical retail at the time.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But food is. So I think, check that out. But as far as I can tell, we do have different rules, but I mean, we're pretty much following the state. And I think I can speak for us. We would think that we're going to follow the state on this one. So check that out. But come back to us with and I think we'd all support you with what you want to do, but just get the facts on that. But I would look under the critical retail back in March for guidance on the DBR website. I think that's where she said it was.
DBR. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
The Department of Business Regulation.
Okay.
And her name is
and that was
the woman's
Liz
name.
Tanner.
Liz Tanner, yeah.
Elizabeth Tanner.
Elizabeth Tanner.
Okay, thank you. And I'm glad that you brought that up, because as you know, a fair amount of our vendors are of the arts and crafts variety. If I had to venture a guess, I would say that 1/3 of our vendors are produce, food related, and the other 2/3 are arts and crafts.
Right.
So that's a large portion. Over half of our vendors are not produce and food related. So as much as it's, that's my struggle, to have to say no to those people that sell beautiful art and that make beautiful things and that want to have an avenue to sell those things.
Ben Reeson?
So,
I would say, given the importance of dogs and animals on this island, dog food and biscuits are a critical part of that food supply.
well, thank you, Sven.
I like dog biscuits.
Thank you. Chris Willie?
No, I think Audrey, I think all the questions I had, I think were answered. I think Meg, planning for an alternate location would be smart, considering the road construction is just not feasible to do it at that location, at least until that project's done. So if you come back to us with another location, Andre's point was one that I raised when we first saw your letter. So I would get clarification, because farmers market, but the rules, as we progress, that might change next week. Farmers market are
Right.
part of the critical retail, but to Andre's point, art isn't part of that critical retail, but that can change next week, because right now retail is open. But retail's open on a restricted basis, and how those restrictions would apply to you are important to consider. And I think the DVR is definitely your call, because they are very good at fielding all the questions and letting people know where they have to look and what they have to follow. And then and in the meantime, work on an alternate location to get you through at least to past the first week of July, and then come back.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you, Chris.
Okay, Meg, thanks for your correspondence.
And thank you guys. I appreciate all that you do. And thanks for keeping us informed, and everything that you do for the town is very appreciated, even if it might not be told to you by everybody. So know that it is.
Thank you, Meg.
Thank you, Meg.
Next item in correspondence is a communication from Steve Miller. He said this charter slip needs to be renewed, yet as it stands now, he's unable to take charters. There's some way to push the renewal back. It may not be safe for us older captains to take passengers. I believe he's had conversations with the harbor master on this. Jim, can you, like I said, this is just to receive the correspondence, but I think, is this something you want to take up with him, Jim?
Yes. I haven't had that conversation with Kate about this yet.
Okay. All right. Well, anyone have any comments on this? Like I said, it's not an action item tonight, just receiving a letter. Chris?
As far as I know, charter for hire business is not restricted in Rhode Island. I haven't found anything that states that it is restricted. You have to follow, I guess the Department of Business Regulation has your COVID-19, and you have to apply what you can to your business and use best practices. So.
Okay, well, we can have the harbor master follow up on this and go from there. I'm getting a signal that my connection is unstable, or is that yours, Chris?
That was mine. I don't know. Mine looks good.
I think it's everybody.
Okay.
You're going in and out on me.
Okay. Final item on the agenda is minutes make a motion to approve the minutes of, I don't even know how I do this. Make a motion to approve the minutes of Wednesday, May 6th, continue to Friday, May 8th, and continue to Monday, May 11th.
Second.
Seconded by Chris.
I'm sorry.
I have a question about May 7th.
Any changes or comments? All those in favor, Andre?
I'm gonna abstain. I don't have any minutes. They might have been in a packet. I'll abstain. I'm sure they're fine.
Chris?
Aye.
Sven?
I haven't finished reading them all, but aye.
Martha?
Aye.
I'll vote affirmative. Motion carries. You have to, if you want, we can, it's not on the agenda, but we can certainly get an idea of when everyone wants to have a meeting next week. I assume everyone wants to have another meeting next week. Monday is a holiday. So if you want to have a meeting, it would have to be Wednesday or Thursday to give us enough time to advertise. Or we
Well, we
can,
need to.
or we can do the following week.
Well, we have,
No.
no, yeah.
Governor's
I
decision.
figured, so we'll shoot for Wednesday then, or what?
What about Tuesday? Or you want to keep it on the Monday,
We
Wednesday?
have to be able to advertise, so,
Can't we post it Friday?
we have to put together an agenda and then advertise it properly, so we can't use the weekend, and Monday's a
Yeah,
holiday.
let's stick with Wednesday. We've been doing Wednesday.
Wednesday's good.
Wednesday's fine.
Wednesday, okay.
Hey, this 7 o'clock, I don't know if we want to talk about the time. 7, 4, 4, okay. Sven seems to like 4.
It just,
All right.
9 o'clock gets late.
Yeah, well,
Well.
we're gonna start losing daylight hour. We're gonna start competing on our daylight activities. But whatever, if that's a consensus.
So what time you meeting?
Martha, what's your feeling on times now that we're getting into the summer? 4 or 7?
Well,
4 or 7?
compromise. We had 5 today. Why do we have 5?
I don't know.
Confuse me, but
Um,
I'm fine. I'd prefer 7 actually, but
all right, maybe we could. All right, we'll do normal time. Because some of us are getting back to work, and 4 is a little early, but we can accommodate. It's all good. Why don't we
so
just
what are we
do?
doing?
I don't know. Well, later's fine with me. Later's better for me.
All right, so we'll do it on Wednesday. If anyone has issues they want to bring up in terms of agenda items, make sure we get it in as soon as possible.
What time was that?
7 o'clock. Molly.
Thank
If
you.
that's all right with everybody.
So Molly, what do we have for a deadline in terms?
Fine.
Molly, what do we have for a deadline in terms of advertising with the holiday on Monday?
Friday.
No, can't count the weekend, so tomorrow, right?
Okay.
No sugar.
Ken, it could be a relatively short meeting, basically summarizing where the governor is and what does the impact on us. So I just think we have to meet to respond and be able to act on the governor's changes or no changes.
I
Right.
beg your pardon, I was still on the Monday meeting. Yeah, we can do it. No, it is Thursday, I'm sorry. See, the 7 o'clock meeting is too late for me. Tomorrow is the deadline.
Okay.
Poll us, it's fine. I'm sure we have a lot of general business that's been backing up. So if we can get some of that off the docket, that would be fantastic.
All right, we'll try and get it together tomorrow. Thank you, everyone. I'll make a motion to adjourn. All those in favor, Andre?
Second.
Second it.
Andre seconds it. Andre votes affirmative. Chris?
Aye.
Ben?
Aye.
Martha?
Aye.
I vote aye. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night. Be safe.
Thank you.
Thank you, you too.
I'm not gonna have any problems sleeping.
Everyone.